Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's live IELTS class. My name is Adrian, and I am broadcasting to you live from beautiful Budapest, Hungary. Today, we're doing some speaking practice for IELTS. It is September the 3rd, and as usual, our materials are coming from our websites for academic IELTS. Please check us out at aehelp.com. And if you are studying for general IELTS, definitely do visit us at gieltshelp.com. That's generalieltshelp.com. We have lots of great materials there for you, including 6 full practice exams, a fully interactive course, interactive tests that you can use on your phone, tablet, computer, many hours of videos. Hi, Baljeet. Hi, Manisha. Hi, Jeffrey. How are all of you doing? Good to see you. I like your little frog emoji there, Baljeet. Thanks for throwing that out there. All right, and if you haven't checked out our app yet, you can download our Academic IELTS Help app from your Google Play Store. So definitely check that out, girls and guys. All right. If you have any questions, you can always contact me. My email is adrian@aehelp.com. That's my name, adrian@aehelp.com. You can set up a practice speaking mock interview, and you can also get writing and editing help on our websites. Again, just a reminder of the schedule that we have going on right now. We're broadcasting according to Central European Time, which is CET. If you Google it, you can find out the difference between your time and Central European Time. And this is our schedule until the 16th. Today we're doing a member chat speaking part 3 practice with some strategy. Then tomorrow we will finish up the reading section strategies from our adapted online course. That's course part 12. And then we have, again, a members chat. We kind of rotate the members chat and the everybody can chat classes. And we have classes all the way until the 9th. And then on the 10th and 11th, we have a little bit of a break. And then back again, full speed ahead on the 12th to the 16th. All right. So at the end of August there, hi Naveen, good to see you in class as well. So at the end of August there, our last or second to last members chat class, we were talking about how to improvise in the speaking section. Improvising means that you are thinking quickly and you're making up your answers on the spot as the examiner is asking you. Again, it's a skill that you need to practice at home. Combine it with your critical creative thinking, your imagination, your visualization. Think about what most people would respond to that question. We adapted that to part 1 and then even to part 2. So this is just a little bit of a review, okay? So when you're sitting in the IELTS speaking, clearly you need to use your knowledge that you have. When the examiner says something like, let's talk about sports, okay, you really need to very quickly think about, okay, what did I just recently see regarding sports? Did I watch the World Cup soccer? Is the Olympics coming up? So what do I know about sports? What have I learned about that? What kind of sports do I like? What do I play? What do I want to play? So all of that information should be in your mind moving around as soon as you hear the topic of what questions you will be asked. That's the big reason that the IELTS examiners tell you that information. They'll say, let's talk about sports, or now let's talk about flowers, or now let's talk about cooking. When they say that, that's a trigger, that's a hint that you need to start thinking about that topic and all of the information that you've experienced in relation to that topic. Okay. Oftentimes when you're thinking of examples, examples are very important, girls and guys, in the speaking section. So in part 1, part 2, and part 3, whenever you have a chance to give an example from your own life, you need to do that, okay? Examples make communication clear and powerful. They also extend what you say, show a greater range of vocabulary and grammar. So once you give your answer, the reason for your answer, you really need to focus on the examples. Baljit says, hey, right now the Asian Games are going on, so if we get a topic on sports, think about the Asian Games. Absolutely, Asian Games is a little bit smaller than the Olympics, but quite a big sporting event. A lot of us do follow it. I've actually had the chance, Baljit, to attend some of the Asian Games in the past and really enjoyed that. So a very good tip there, all right? Any new members that just joined recently, I know there's a couple, make sure to send me an email so I can hook you up with our exams, and you can also request classes. Keep that in mind, okay? All right, and then, of course, another way to expand your answers and think about more information is think about questions. So instead of just thinking about your answer, think about, okay, when is this happening? Where is this happening? So I'll stay with your Asian Games suggestion there, Baljit. If you're talking about that and you're using that to give a response, then you should think about, okay, where are these Asian Games happening? What cities are they taking place in? What types of sporting events do they include? Judo, for example, or gymnastics. So try to think about those, okay? So think about those questions to extend your answers. We're going to practice all of those today, okay? All right. Now, again, also be careful that you're not over-speaking, okay? So we're going to focus on part 3 today. Again, it is speaking practice, so make sure to repeat after me, okay? Use your nice loud voice. Hopefully you're in a place where you can speak aloud. Repeat questions as well as the answers that we provide, all right? So when you hear me read the question, say it after me. When we compose the answer, then again, say it after me. Now, members, I really want you to give a good effort here. Don't worry about making mistakes. That's why I'm here. Focus on trying to give as many answers as possible. Again, remember, you need to think of your answer, the reason for your answer, and a good example, all right? So in the IELTS, you have 3 parts. Part 1, it's just some general questions. Part 2, you have that little 2-minute mini speech, elevator pitch. And then you have questions related to the topic of part 2. Now, again, at the end of August, we looked at part 2. We devised a good response there to get a nice high score, and we're continuing on with a similar or related topic, which is going to meetings, okay? So in part 3, in this case, the examiner will say, okay, that is the end of part 2. Now we will continue with part 3. For part 3, I'm going to ask you some more questions related to the topic of part 2. Let's talk about going to meetings, okay? Manisha, thank you again for sending the first few questions here. I've expanded on them. Oftentimes, the IELTS examiners will have 2 sets of questions for part 3, so you'll see that in a minute. Okay. Part 3 questions are a little bit more detailed. They're a little bit more complex. Focus on the grammar. Focus on the exact topic and controlling idea. So here's the question. What are the different types of meetings that people often go to? Okay, so what are the different types of meetings that people often go to? Now, let's say that you're snoozing a little bit, you're a little bit stressed, you're nervous, your brain's not working as well as it should, so you buy yourself a little bit of time. So you can say something like, that's an interesting question. Can you give me a moment to think? Okay, you can ask for time. It's fine. Okay. And then the examiner will probably say, yeah, sure, no problem, or they'll stay quiet, and then you just think for a couple of seconds. And then you start giving your answer. Well, there are definitely a few common types of meetings in everyday life. These include, and what are they? So here is where you start to use that visualization. And again, one of the most powerful pieces or strategies here is think about what 9 out of 10 people would say. So if you ask 10 people, what are some of the different types of meetings that people go to? What do you think the top answer? So what do you think most people would say? What would most people say? Baljit, I never thought about that. Give me a moment. Office meeting or work meeting is okay. The most common way to say that in English is a business meeting. Okay? These include business meetings. Yeah, I bet if you ask 10 people, most people would say business meeting. Okay? What are some other types of meetings? Manisha says family meetings. Absolutely. Yeah, it's a good idea to have family meetings. Yeah. Any other way to say meeting so that you're not repeating the word meeting over and over again? Think about that. So business meeting, family meeting, school or education, school meeting. Anything else based on what we just said at the beginning, or we just talked about? Yeah, family gathering, sure, is okay. In this context, we can understand that it's probably referring to a meeting. Okay, or you could say, if you want it to be a little bit more precise, you could say family discussion, a school meeting, political meeting, yes, Baljit, but probably not as much. I'm surprised that none of you, even though I primed you for it, came up with an sports meeting or team meeting. Okay. So that's a good answer. That's more than plenty, okay? If you can think of 2 of these, that's fine. If you can think of more, great, but you really can get an 8.59 even just by thinking of 2. If you say business meetings and family discussions are 2 very common types of meetings. Are we done yet? Let's see. So again, here's the question. Repeat after me. What are the different types of meetings that people often go to? That's an interesting question. Can you give me a moment to think? Well, there are definitely a few common types of meetings in everyday life. These include business meetings, family discussions, school projects, and sports meetings. Okay? Well, there might be a why question here, Baljit. You might want to answer that. So that's kind of what I'm hinting towards. Are we done with this answer? And you should be saying, no, Adrian, we're not. So you could include the why answer. It's always a good idea to include the why answer. The purpose of these meetings is to overcome a challenge or reach some goal. Okay, so definitely you can throw that in there. Again, don't overspeak because you can go off topic, but as long as you go to the what, okay, and the why, so this is the what up here. Okay, so what? This is the why part that Balji just suggested. Why don't may as well throw in the why response as well, the reason for meetings, sure. And then here you should do something more. You should take one more step to really enhance your score. Now, of course, you should keep in mind that most non-native English speakers will not have perfect grammar, pronunciation, natural language choice. So it's very important that you give a complete answer so that you're not losing marks for fluency and for task completion. So Baljit says that, as I previously mentioned, I was at a sports meeting. Okay, Baljit, you haven't mentioned being at a sports meeting, so don't be too creative, be careful. But you are knocking on the right door. And by that, I mean that you are thinking of an example, which is great. They're a little bit brighter. You can see me a bit more now. Yeah, Baljit, if you're referring to the cue card, in the cue card it was a school meeting. I'm not sure if you attended that class. This is where Jeffrey could probably jump in, or Manisha, because I remember the two of you attended that class. So that was a school meeting. And we could use that. So you can refer to part 2. That is a good tip, Baljit. Connecting part 2 to part 3 is a very good idea. Okay, that shows even more coherence in your communication. So as I mentioned in the previous part, I attended a very exciting school meeting for the University Expo, which went very well. Okay, so there you go. That would be a very nice example to relate back to part 2, and that's very, very good to do. All right, so that's a full answer. You've given the what, you've given the why, you've given the how. You should not speak more. You should now stop and wait for that next question. Okay. So let's, again, just go through this question and answer, and then we'll go to the next one. So the examiner says, again, remember, repeat. So ladies and gentlemen, this is your chance to practice your speaking. Even if you're not a member and you're not able to comment, that's okay. Just repeat what I say. There's lots of learning to be had here. That's an interesting question, or sorry, that's already our answer here. What are the different types of meetings that people often go to? That's an interesting question. Can you give me a moment to think? Well, there are definitely a few common types of meetings in everyday life. These include business meetings, family discussions, school meetings, and sports meetings. The purpose of these meetings is to overcome a challenge usually, or to reach some kind of a goal. As I mentioned in the previous part, I attended a very exciting school club meeting for the University Expo, which went really well. Hi Shanu, good to see you jumping into class also. All right, let's go to the next question. So following the same ideas, the same strategies, let's go to the second question here. Repeat after me. So the examiner will say, some people say that no one likes to go to meetings. What do you think? Okay. How should you start the answer here? So some people say that no one likes to go to meetings. What do you think? Again, critical thinking, analytic thinking. You should notice something kind of unique in this question. There's something special in this question. So Jeffrey says, wow, definitely not. Why not, Jeffrey? And why are you surprised by the question? I think you're feeling it. Let's see if you can express it. Manisha, make sure you use first person voice. So not we don't think so. Say I don't think so, or I don't think that's true. So you can start off with something like, well, I certainly don't quite agree with that statement. Okay? So yeah, you're feeling it right, that it's kind of a catch question, or a rhetorical question, because somebody with good, quick, critical thinking would probably say that, I don't think that's true. Why is that not true? Okay, why is that not true? Naveen says, well, it depends on the type of meeting. If it's a formal discussion, people hesitate to attend. And if it's a family meeting, then everybody will love to get together and have a discussion. Maybe not, Naveen. Some family issues can be very sensitive as well. Okay? Here's an interesting question for all of you out there. No one. What's the difference between saying no one and between saying most people? Okay, so most people versus no one. What's the difference between those two phrases. There's something very important, and this is important to know for communication and for IELTS. Not just in the speaking section, but it's actually very important in the other sections of IELTS as well. And it's very important for university. Let me ask it from you this way, okay? Manisha, that's right. So you're saying no one means not a single person. There's a name for that in grammar and communication. So here, I'll give you a different example. Maybe that will jog your memory. Most of you learned this at some point in your own language, if not in English, in school. So the difference between fastest and faster. Okay, so both are adjectives. We could say the fastest car in the world, and we can also say one of the faster cars in the world. So what is this called in communication and grammar, and what is this called in communication and grammar? It's quite, there you go, Naveen. Very good. That's exactly what I'm fishing for. Very good, Shanu. So fastest is a superlative. Okay, and faster is a relative because it's a relative to some other comparison or point of comparison. All right, so this is a little bit of a side note here for your speaking and your communication, but it's a very important one, okay? So yeah, relative or comparative is a good way to say it. I'll stay in the same notation, so comparative. Thank you for that, Shanu. All right, so here's an important point to remember. In fact, it's so important that I'm going to put this into our notes for today, and you need to remember this for IELTS and for university, and then we'll come back here to these questions, okay? So, note, superlatives are rarely true in real life. And it is best to avoid them in professional and academic communication. You must be very careful with these. Okay, in university, if you write that this is the best method to produce vitamin C, your professor in most cases will say, "Are you sure about that? It's the best method? There's no other method in the world that's potentially better." And in university, professors usually look down on superlative language because they know that it's generally not true. Also, by the way, girls and guys, in your everyday communication, it's good to avoid superlatives. We often get into arguments because we're using superlative communication. I'll give you an example. When a boyfriend and a girlfriend are arguing with each other, and then the boyfriend says, "Well, you never call me. I always call you." Oh, okay, that's maybe an angry moment, but probably not true. It's hard to imagine a relationship where only one person calls the other person. And then, of course, that leads to argument because then the girl's going to say, "Well, that's not true. I called you last Friday." And then the argument continues. It's better to say, in this case, "You rarely call me. I call you much more often than you call me. You called me last Saturday, but I call you just about every day." And then that's much, much more clear communication, and you avoid argument, okay? So, getting back to the point here, this is kind of a catch question because it's using a superlative. So some people say that no one likes to go to meetings. What do you think? All right, so here, now that you know this information, you can answer it much, much better, okay? You can say, "Well, I certainly don't quite agree with that statement." Although people often are hesitant to attend meetings, especially when it means work or it is boring. Okay? So, well, I certainly don't quite agree with that statement. Although people are often hesitant to attend meetings, especially when it means work or if it's boring. If it's boring, but some discussions can be very exciting and lucrative. Okay? Anybody know the meaning of lucrative? There's some good vocabulary there for you as well. Okay? So here you're identifying that this is a superlative, it can't be true, and you're giving a good response. Well, I certainly don't quite agree with that statement. Although people often are hesitant to attend meetings, especially when it means work or if it's boring, some discussions, take out that but, never use two negatives like that. Some discussions can be very exciting and lucrative. I don't think it's fair to say that all people hate meetings. Okay, so just strengthening up that response. All right. Yes, lucrative means, that's right, Jeffrey, it means that it yields some kind of an advantage. Often we refer to money. So if you have a good business meeting and you identify some good ways to make money or to profit, then that could be a lucrative meeting. Exactly. So it's money oriented and it's about making some fortune through your meetings. Okay. Are we done? So are we done here? Or can we do something more to push our IELTS band score a little bit higher? Again, don't overspeak. It's easy to go off topic. And most of you are probably thinking, yeah, hey, there's Mohammed with what I'm thinking. The example, of course, let's throw an example in there. So Mohammed, Baljit, Manisha, can somebody give me an example for what we're responding with here? What would be a good example? What could be a good example? Let's see if you kept in mind one of the tips I just gave you on the previous question that Baljit very kindly reminded us of. Okay? Again, focus on coherence. So I'll give you a minute to think about that. Yeah, Baljit, you could do that one. So you could go with a family meeting. You could say, my dad called a family gathering on Friday. Try to give it some quantitative information. Remember, quantitative information, something we can see and measure. So just throw that word Friday in there, Baljit, and it's already better. So my dad called a family gathering last Friday to discuss expenses, and we learned that from the following week, we would all get an extra $100 allowance a month. That meeting was definitely fun and lucrative, right? So if dad decides to give all of the kids in the family an extra $50 a month, $10 a month to spend on entertainment or so on, that could be a good meeting. Manisha, that's right. That's what I was thinking of. Connecting back to part 2 again. So part 2 was about that school club meeting. And absolutely, Manisha, the cue card connection. And as Jeffrey expressed, that was a good meeting. He thought that was very enjoyable and yielded positive results because he learned some very good skills on how to manage himself in a meeting. So we could add that in. So again, as I mentioned in the last part, the school club meeting was very enjoyable for me. And as far as I could tell, many of the other attendees also had fun. Okay. Remember to stay on the controlling idea of the question. So the controlling idea of the question is that no one likes to go to meetings. So that's what you need to target, that no one likes to go to meetings. Don't forget about that. So here, that's why my example focuses on that. I enjoyed the meeting, and other people who were there also seemed to enjoy the meeting. It's a good, strong example. All right, let's go through this nice and smooth. Just again, repeat after me. Even if you're not a member, that's okay. Just nice and loud, repetition, repetition. By the way, girls and guys, you can also record what you're doing on your phone if you can enable your microphone function, so you can review this later. Of course, you can watch the video again, but it's good to do it in real time so you have it on your phone. Some people say that no one likes to go to meetings. What do you think? Well, I certainly don't quite agree with that statement. Although people often are hesitant to attend meetings, especially when it means work or if it's boring, some discussions can be very exciting and lucrative. I don't think it's fair to say that all people hate meetings. Again, as I mentioned in the last part, the school club meeting was very enjoyable for me, and as far as I could tell, many of the other attendees also had fun. Okay? Now, when you're practicing this at home or as you're watching this lesson at home, do take note of some expressions that I'm throwing out at you, which you can use effectively to increase your natural speaking score in this part of the test. The one that I was thinking of here is as far as I could tell. Okay, so keep that in mind. That's a very common expression in English, as far as I could tell. All right, and then here we have the next question. So why can it sometimes be important to go to meeting or to go to, let's put an S there, make it grammatically correct, to go to meetings, okay? So here, this question clearly is asking you for the reason of going to meetings. Now, this is where I definitely want to use some visualization, okay? So visualize this. Okay, it's very important. So what do you see when you get this question asked from you? When this question is asked from you, you should see a kind of a video or a picture in your brain, in your mind. What do you see when this question comes at you? Tell me that, okay? You don't have to respond to it, but tell me what you see. Baljit, you don't have to give an example for every single question in part 3, but if you can slip them in for most, maybe all questions, yeah, it's good. It's going to help you, absolutely. And you're saying, what if your explanation and ideas are good enough? That's really hard to tell. Only the person listening can really tell you if your explanation was good enough. Sometimes students, when I'm doing speaking practice with them, they think that their explanation is terrible and it's actually good. And sometimes students think that they give me a great explanation and it's actually terrible. So examples will certainly help to clarify your explanation in most cases. Jeffrey, you say that the first that comes to mind is government officials meeting. Sure. Something more simple is okay here. So I'm not thinking politicians. I'm thinking something a little bit more simple. Okay. Baljit says boosters. Maybe. What I mean by visualize this is that you physically go into a meeting room, okay? Naveen says, I visualize seminars which I give in my college forcefully with my lecturers. Sure. Here, though, what I'm thinking of, okay, so is basically a boardroom with a large boardroom table, and then there are people sitting around that boardroom table, maybe a couple people taking notes and pencil. There's some table legs. So these are the people, okay? So what you should be visualizing is a common type of meeting situation, and it's good to be specific. So it's good to be thinking of maybe some politicians or some school faculty members sitting around the table and having a face-to-face discussion, okay? So what you should get from this is a face-to-face discussion. Okay, and if you can think of the words face-to-face discussion, you are definitely on the right path to give a very good response and maintain that high IELTS band score. So now let me ask you the question in a paraphrased way. Why is it important for people to attend face-to-face discussions? And I bet you'll give me a very good answer now. So instead of asking it in this kind of simple, disguised type of way, why can it sometimes be important to go to meetings? Think about the question, and this comes from visualizing. Why is it sometimes important to have a face-to-face discussion? Now I bet you can give me a very good answer. And I'm waiting for that, so I'll give you a moment to think about that. And again, if you need time, there are some catchphrases that you can use to buy yourself a bit of time, right? So, and while you're thinking of your answers, I'll put that up there. Well, I never really gave that any thought, but I'm certain there are some very good reasons to attend some meetings. Okay, it's a long paraphrase with buying time, giving you lots of seconds or several seconds to come up with a good answer, okay? So why am I attending this meeting? Why am I going to have this face-to-face discussion? Okay. So Manisha says to share ideas effectively in order to reach logical conclusions. It's very nice language, Manisha. I think that's great to include into the example. Sometimes it is inevitable to attend meetings which involve our presence. Absolutely, sure. Okay. What else? What else can you come up with? So that's pretty good, Naveen. That's pretty good, Manisha. Let's see what else some of the other students come up with, okay? Okay, getting together in face-to-face, so use that language, discussions can be important to effectively communicate ideas. Also, people not only hear each other this way, but also get a better sense of emotions through body language, right? So that's what I was thinking of as well. So yeah, sure. You can, so here, the word is go to meetings, okay? This is an important word here that you're going to the meeting. You're not just meeting this person through Skype. You're not just meeting them on the phone. It's not a teleconference, but you're actually going to this meeting, okay? So you're there physically. Obviously, when you're there physically, you get a lot more body language from the people who are attending, okay? So, here we go. When I went to a sales meeting last month with some clients, even though they said they were interested to buy, I could tell from their body language that they were not going to do so. Okay? So something like that, just really stretching it out, giving you an example there, okay? Mohammed says, although most meetings over video conference are not as productive, attending face-to-face meetings are indispensable and fruitful because there is a lot more engagement and the attendees feel responsible for each other, or more responsible for each other. Mohammed, the same thing the reason why I raised that word but in the previous question, careful not to combine two contrasting words. So don't use although and whereas in the same sentence. You just use one of those, okay? So take out the whereas, all right? All right, so again, let's read the question. Repeat nice and loud after me. So why can it sometimes be important to go to meetings? Well, I never really gave that any thought, but I'm certain there are some very good reasons to attend some meetings. Getting together face-to-face discussions can be important to effectively communicate ideas. Also, people not only hear each other this way, but also get a better sense of emotions through body language. When I went to a sales meeting last month with some clients, even though they said they were interested to buy, I could tell from their body language that they were not going to do so. Okay? Baljit says, for example, last week I was called to a meeting at the police station because I was the only witness of a crime which happened on a deserted road. Okay, not empty road, Baljit, deserted road. All right? All right, let's go to the next one. This is kind of a more simple one. It should be pretty quick. How has technology changed meetings? Is this good or bad? Okay, so again, you can make a connection to the last question there, all right? Here, you shouldn't have to buy time. When you get this kind of a question, there are some very quick responses. It's focusing on technology. And when you have the word technology, immediately you can think of the top answer that a lot of people would give for this question. Okay? So, what do you think? Jeffrey, Manisha, Naveen, how has technology changed meetings? And is it good or bad? In this kind of a question, when it's a double question, always be really careful not to miss the second half of the question. One of the common mistakes, especially for high-level students that are band 7.5 or higher, where they're losing those higher band marks, is they forget to clearly answer the second question of the question. So make sure to focus on that as well. So how has technology changed meetings? Is this good or is this bad? Okay. It's okay to use some natural fillers like and A lot of students panic, think it's terrible, think it makes for bad fluency. It's not true. As long as you're not going and too much, which is actually quite a bit, you can use it. I use it. Probably noticing in my speech that I'm using natural fillers and I'm quite fluent. All right, so think about your answer. So, there are definitely a few ways that technology has changed the way people host or attend meetings. The most obvious is people do not need to be physically present. They can meet through teleconferencing or video conferencing remotely. Okay. Again, if I'm putting up some new vocabulary for you, make sure you write it down, practice it so you can use it. Not just understand it, but use it also. Just check something. I bet you this might even be one word. Yeah. All right. So The most obvious is people do not need to be physically present. They can meet through teleconferencing or video conferencing remotely. Let me just get you back on screen here. So, where do I go from here? Am I done? Is this a good enough answer? What should I do? So Naveen says, yes, absolutely. Technology has changed meetings with sophisticated innovations of video calls and the use of social media networking applications. And yes, this change is good for society as it enables people to host meetings in distant or remote locations where otherwise it would not be possible. For instance, I just met with one of my colleagues in Japan and discussed a very important theory in my medical field. Okay, so something there, Naveen, a little bit more, and note those corrections. All right. Jeffrey says, online meetings are much more common these days than before, and these not only save time for people, but they also save traveling expenses and stress, as well as having to rent places. So in this way, they are definitely a positive. Good, Jeffrey. Again, notice how I corrected that, and make sure to review that correction when you review this video. Manisha says, the way of meeting or the way of hosting meetings among people has evolved greatly with modern technology, as today people are much more likely to meet online through digital medium instead of being physically present. And again, Manisha, don't forget the second part of the question. Is it good or is it bad? This is good for the most part because it saves time and money, but it can also be negative since people feel less responsible towards each other. Okay, that would be a very nice complete answer. All right, and then Jeffrey's throwing in an example. For example, my uncle Tom uses Skype to meet his clients on the other end of the world. And hey, Adrian uses YouTube to host IELTS meetings in all parts of the world simultaneously, right? Here you are with me, all these wonderful members. So a very good example. Don't forget your real life situation, okay? Always draw answers from real life. Manisha says, for example, I usually talk to my grandparents on video call instead of visiting them in Delhi. That's okay, Manisha, but be careful because it's not really focusing on a meeting. In this context, meeting is something that's a little bit more professional. It's not really referring to maintaining a relationship with a loved one or a friend, so it's a little bit of an awkward example. Careful with that, okay? All right, so let's read this question again. Let's finish it up. For the most part, the advent of modern mediums for meeting people in a virtual environment are positive because it saves money and time. However, these meetings are not quite as effective as meeting as face-to-face discussions. Okay, and then we could stretch it out, but again, don't overspeak for each question. That's plenty, okay? 3, maximum 4 sentences for a part 3 question is enough, all right? So here, again, how has technology changed meetings? Is this good or bad? Repeat nice and loud. There are definitely a few ways that technology has changed the way people host or attend meetings. The most obvious is people do not need to be physically present. They can meet through teleconferencing or video conferencing remotely. For the most part, the advent of modern mediums for meeting people in a virtual environment are positive because it saves money and time. However, these meetings are not quite as effective as face-to-face discussions. Okay? Yeah, you're saying, is it good or is it bad, Baljit? So why not just focus on one? Because it's good or bad, so we shouldn't say it's good and bad. Yeah, you have a point there, although if you mention that for the most part it's good, and then there is that one negative, it's fine. That'll work as well. Okay, good question though, with the emphasizing the or, so you really don't need to talk about both. There's no real way of saying is it good and bad, so the question is always going to be good or bad. And yeah, you shouldn't sit on the fence, so it's good to say just one side. I'll side with you on that one, Baljit. All right. So here we have the next set of questions, which is working in teams. So at this point, the IELTS examiner will say, okay, if you're a high-level student and you've answered these questions nice and smooth and you gave some good answers and you still have some time in your speaking, there's a very good chance that the IELTS examiner will ask you some more questions. So they'll say something like, all right, let's talk a little bit more about working in teams. And then they'll ask these kinds of questions. So repeat after me. What are some of the key skills for working in a team? What kinds of projects require teamwork and why? How is teamwork better than working alone? Is this always a positive? So that's kind of similar to the last one about meetings where you have to decide whether it's good or bad. Members, these 3 questions are for homework. Please write your responses at home. Read the question, say your response, record it on your phone, and very importantly, send these responses to me through email so I can give you some feedback of what you're doing well and what you can improve on. And everybody who's watching right now, even if you're not a member, I challenge you to do this homework also. You can send your responses to my company email. Again, that's my name, Adrian, at aehelp.com. So at home, think about those questions. Think about the strategies that we discussed in this lesson. You can send me recorded responses too, Manisha. So you can send me audio. You can email me the MP3, and I will definitely tell you what you would likely score and even give you a couple of hints. Yeah, MP3 format, please. So send them to me in MP3 format. Absolutely. Written is okay. MP3 audio is even better. Yeah, just send it as an attachment, okay? If it's a big file, try to break it into smaller files, okay? So again, here are the questions one more time. All right. So topic, working in teams. Remember, this is a part 3. Give a good answer, explanation, and an example if you can. All right. Remember to think of quantitative as well as qualitative information. Also use a variety of conjunctions. So use subordinating conjunctions, coordinating conjunctions, and correlative conjunctions. Shanu, again, you can do written or you can do MP3, whichever works on your end. MP3 is probably better, okay? It is in the description. These questions are in the description as well, so you can find them there also. All right, everyone. So thank you for watching today's class. Tomorrow, we're continuing with our adapted course sessions, finishing up strategies for the last couple of specific question types for the reading section. So look forward to that tomorrow. It will be at the same time. Again, to get all of our premium world-class course components, visit us, join us, aehelp.com. Academic IELTS, gieltshelp.com, general IELTS. Students who join our websites and spend at least 30, 40 hours with the materials, always improve their band scores, okay? I've never, ever heard of a student who has joined our websites and spent at least, that 20, 30, 40 hours, hopefully more, preparing for IELTS and not improve. I've never heard of that, all right? So you should always improve. Good night, everyone. Thank you for watching. Much love to all of you. Have some really nice dreams, Manisha. Have a good night as well. I know it's late in your country. Bye for now, everyone. I will see you tomorrow.